At 8, the main powerful rank. So, while Ukrainians are being told that now there are long-range strikes of 3,000 kilometers, 6,000 kilometers, 5 light years towards Russia, things in Ukraine itself are not going so well. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. And let's probably start by analyzing one of the videos that I often show here, so-called military personnel, because that is these man-eaters, as they are, actually attacked 3 women. 3 women who were trying to protect several men they were trying to drag into a van, or rather, not several, just one man. And at the same time, okay, let's start with the video first. I'll show you this. This is the van of those very man-eaters. Everything is closed, everything is a secret, all so that, God forbid, no one sees what's going on inside. And here, people are commenting on what happens when the van leaves. Women are left lying on the ground. Unfortunately, I can't show this video in full with all the screams because YouTube doesn't allow it. But it's known that one of the women was shot. So basically, you see, the TCC guys started shooting at civilians. This has been going on for several weeks now. And all sorts of butchers like Zhenya Dikov and some others are saying that the military enlistment officers should be given firearms and that a protocol should be developed allowing them to use these weapons even preemptively in the event of attacks on these very manhunters. You can imagine what will happen after that, but okay, firearms, people have already gotten used to that. The second one was sprayed with an irritating substance, apparently from a canister, and the third one was run over on the leg by that very van. So for the TCC guys, ordinary people are just like those Ukrainian deputies say, they're a resource. And that's exactly what they are, a financial resource. If this resource can't provide anything and starts to resist, so to speak, then you can gas the resource, shoot at it and run it over. Recently I showed you a video of the brave border guards in the west, here at the border, not in the east, who are guarding the western frontiers of the country with their German shepherd dog. It's unclear from whom or why, but apparently they're guarding against intruders who come in from Romania, Hungary, Poland and other countries. Ukraine can no longer handle the number of people seeking residency in this wonderful country. But that's not all. Honestly, I thought we'd hit rock bottom long ago, but no. There are plenty more lows to sink to, by the way. Donya is not only a term of respect for a woman in Spain, but also the plural of the word bottom in Russian. So the bottoms have been hit. And here we have another video that is, imagine, they made a video for school children, Ukrainian school children, in which they are pushing, sorry, there's no other way to put it, that the army is the best future for a person who wants to realize themselves without boring studies at a university, without trying to earn money. Somewhere they even directly say that it's difficult. But in the army, you just come in and you're immediately greeted by beautiful girls, you're immediately welcomed. They show you, and not just your comrades, and you feel like family among them, earning millions of hryvnias. Let me remind you that 6 months ago I showed a video where there was this young man who fell for the allure of the 18 to 24 contract. That is, a paid contract. He lost his leg and in the end spent all the money he earned on treatment. But let's see what they're offering here. Alright, I'll mute the sound just in case because it might get copyrighted or something, but let's watch. So you come to the army and right away girls are smiling at you. Not going abroad, not studying for years again, of course not. That's not worthy of a true citizen. No, there's a better choice. It's interesting. Why do they say that? It just doesn't make sense to me. She shows a video where a girl is showing off a watch and talking about studying abroad for 5 whole years. Or even in Ukraine at a university. And then this cheerful woman says that after all that you won't work a single day in your field. Why? I wonder, what kind of discrimination is this against the Ukrainian education system? Why do they say to all school children, basically, well, to everyone who will see this video, and they'll clearly try to make sure it's millions, that after studying at university you won't work a single day in your field? Why? Why? If that's the case, then the question arises, why do we need such useless universities? Let's just get rid of them completely. In fact, we could just leave only elementary school like a parish school. So what? Well, there used to be those schools of communism, right? Now we'll make it the school of Great Sanich, and basically that's more than enough. And that's when the logical structure of what these showpiece brothers in arms are proposing falls into place. That you need to learn to defend your motherland from childhood, learn to crawl through trenches from childhood, learn to shoot and love Sanich from childhood. Everything is just perfect. No, why work nights after classes? Why would you do that? That's boring. For example, I worked as a loader while I was studying at university. Well, sometimes I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, sometimes at 5. Then I also worked in sales. I had to get up very early to do that too. We're told that persistence and hard work aren't needed. Go ahead, dear, join the army. There you'll be showered with millions of hryvnias, dollars, basically those houris from the Muslim paradise, maybe even with wine. Subtitles provided by Simon. Yes, and again, there's discrimination. Before it was discrimination against universities, and now it's discrimination against the lifestyle of an ordinary person. So, working just to have something to live on turns out to be boring. Just imagine that. Yes, none of that is necessary, but there is a completely different way. Honestly, I don't understand the gestures of these girls, what they are, what they symbolize, or if they symbolize anything at all. But apparently there is some kind of director, most likely. By the way, this is exactly the kind of character they're describing to us here. Someone who never studied anywhere, who never worked nights. Then he saw that studying or working in his field was boring and thought, oh well, I'll just shoot a video, slap something together. Probably someone's son like Tatyushka, you know, from the 90s. Yeah, some godfather, brother, or someone's relative. Oh, great, an officer's career. And by the way, what kind of gesture is that, excuse me? What kind of officer is this, and whose side is he on? First he salutes, and then what is that? From the head to the sun. It's like how they used to mock Elon Musk, excuse my language, with that from the heart to the sun gesture, and now we have some kind of officer. Well, in general, it doesn't look at all like he just waved casually. It's something else, something strange, really. Yeah, so basically, an officer's career turns out to be the perfect future for a citizen of Ukraine. You don't need to study, and you don't have to work after classes for your studies or to have money for things. To date girls, money, go to clubs, or, for example, buy yourself some book. For example, I remember when I was 17, I think I bought Dale Carnegie's book, and I earned the money for it myself, and it really helped me move forward in life. Or maybe it was even when I was 16. Anyway, back then I was either working as a loader, I don't really remember, the years just kept changing, or I was selling vegetables at the market, again earning my own money. But that's how it was. You don't have to do that, you don't have to read, you don't have to go through boring studies, you don't need those pennies. If everyone becomes an officer, the country will be filled with officers. And then they'll probably be surprised like, why is there no money? Where are all the workers, the workers? Let's bring in Indians and Bangladeshis like they're saying now and predicting that by 2030 there will be a shortage of 15 million workers just because everyone is an officer. Honestly, forgive me, but I haven't seen such an idea in a long time. And on top of everything, now look at this wonderful army. An officer's career, which apparently consists of training in a canal with stagnant water. This isn't war, it's basically just training. People were shoved into cold water, just sitting and waiting around for who knows what, though there's obviously no sea there, and as for the sun, it's there. Well, basically that's it, they're just sitting there and it's not clear what they're waiting for. That's an officer's career, that's just wonderful. Then they'll get 20,000 hryvnias each, and it turns out there's nothing to live on. That's right, you should work nights there to earn a living, but as an officer you won't earn enough to live on. Basically, you don't need money, because you'll be sitting in a ditch. Write in the comments what you think. It's extremely strange, but that's not all. We also have the problem that Ukraine, which was once the breadbasket of Europe and still partially is, has ended up having its access to the Black Sea blocked. And as a result, the blockade doesn't mean they're blowing up every single ship. No, just a couple of cargo ships were enough, and now the owners of other cargo ships don't want to enter Ukrainian ports. Ukrainian agricultural exports, they say, ended up under threat after a series of Russian strikes on ports and civilian ships in the Black Sea. The sea corridor has practically come to a halt and alternative routes are not able to fully replace it. Russian attacks on Ukraine's port infrastructure sharply intensified in the summer of 2026. The security situation has worsened due to Russian strikes on civilian vessels. Some vessels have stopped entering the ports of Odessa. Domestic grain prices are falling while global prices are rising. Well, it's clear that if there's nowhere to export the grain, it will be cheaper inside the country. The export of Ukrainian grain is under threat. Can the Danube, railways and road transport replace the sea route? No, of course they can't. That's the answer. Well, and here we're told that Russia has carried out 23 strikes on Ukrainian ports. The most high-profile incident there happened when a cargo ship loaded with Ukrainian corn was destroyed. Then there were more problems. Ukraine is already calling for a meeting at the UN Security Council. But before the bombings and shelling of tankers which are either Russian or just carrying Russian oil or are somehow considered important, but in reality, well, basically, Ukraine started attacking these tankers and faced retaliation. Honestly, it's a very strange strategy. Yes, Russia has losses because of these bombings, shelling of oil refineries, these oil tanks, and so on and so on. But Ukraine has less. And right now it has a lot more problems, including economic ones, of course. And today I was already listening to the whining of one of these Ukrainian hawks, one of the so-called powerful leaders, who said, despite the shelling in Russia, the oil refineries, all that, the firepower isn't decreasing. What's the matter? We don't know. But most likely, all these operations are designed and developed mostly by officers like these, who haven't really worked or studied, but built their officer careers from the heart to the sun. Wonderful, wonderful. What a wonderful country. Honestly, every time you see this news, you can't help but be surprised. Let's put it that way. What else? Well, if you were hoping that, for example, with the change of Prime Minister in Britain, the situation would change globally in Britain or in Ukraine, you were mistaken. The first person the new British Prime Minister met with was Zelensky. Moreover, the eagerness to meet was so strong that Zelensky flew in on an armored helicopter, well, basically on a blue helicopter, like in the song from the fairy tale, like a wizard, only instead of bringing ice cream, he brought himself, and as a result he became the first head of state the new British Prime Minister met with. The meeting took place at a naval base in Portsmouth, and Burden stated that he fully supports Ukraine, so we can be glad about that. We should be glad, but I don't feel like it, because people will keep sitting in ditches, people will keep watching this public service ad made by certain individuals who are apparently close to the ruling majority, and people will see that they're being encouraged not to study but to build a career from the heart to the sun. Well, my heart leaps with joy just looking at this and listening to all of it. What else is there? The British Prime Minister announced aid to Ukraine? That's right, the new Stoneclaw technology, the Stone Cloak, makes it harder for air defense systems to detect drones that use this technology. I wouldn't be surprised if the cape actually flutters behind some drones like Superman's, and in the end it all turns out to be super effective, well, maybe it reduces the chance of being shot down or detected by 3%, for example. Well, just perfect. At the same time, the detection rate in Ukraine is increasing. The super effectiveness of economic crimes, which is also great. Millions were suddenly found in garages here, along with foreign real estate. 415 declarations of officials were checked. Apparently, these individuals didn't share. Honestly, I don't believe that there is a real fight against corruption going on right now, or that any systems to combat it are being deployed. Apparently, there are some isolated signs, like someone didn't share, someone criticized someone, or someone just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So what does it all lead to? And here, many signs of false information have been identified, as well as signs of unjustified assets. And we're talking about 23 million hryvnias. Well, for the Ukrainian political elite, 23 million hryvnias is like us, dear viewers, just going to the store. Well, maybe it's an expensive store, but still, it's just like going there and buying groceries for a week. For all those other deputies, it's like finding a few million hryvnias on the street. So while these officers are building their careers from the heart to the sun, the deputies have enough to live on, to eat, and to get by. And not just for a week, but for much longer. Naturally, after studying, they definitely won't be working at night. Well, now let's take a look at some other powerful leaders, because how could we do without them? It's just physically impossible. So, we have a few citizens who want to share their opinions with us right away. For example, here's one of those who is building a career. She's a drone operator. They usually show assault troops, not regular soldiers. They always show some barbershop and beauty salon types who are sitting near Kyiv, filming videos in some bushes about which position they left, and they talk about all sorts of things. Look, what a soldier! And she's speaking Russian, and no one says anything. Taras Lyalok with his language police shtick doesn't come running to find her. No, nothing like that. Why is that, you might ask? She's speaking Russian. Again, I fully support the right to speak any language in any country. But in Ukraine, where soon even dogs will be forced to speak this Western dialect, not the classic Poltava one, but the Western one. For some reason, suddenly the military or those considered to be military get some kind of special treatment when speaking on television. Well, then make a single rule for everyone. I haven't heard of that. No, because it's constantly being translated, of course. By the way, the first time I was really surprised by a translation from Russian to Ukrainian was back in the 90s, and they were showing some cartoons. And those very talented sound engineers who started working on them back then didn't erase the Russian audio track, they just put the Ukrainian one on top of it. And it was such a mess, such chaos, that it became almost impossible to listen to or watch it. But why, if she's controlling the drone? Is she controlling it? It's so hard to control a drone that men were surprised. Moreover, well, again, just look. Look, good skin, nice hair, eyebrows, lips, everything has been treated and perfected in a beauty salon. And of course, the uniform is clean. She's not sitting in a bunker. Great, great. The soldiers at the front are probably watching all this and thinking,
when we met those who were coming out of the position, I met the guys who had trained with me directly, and around me were men, and I was the only woman who went into the positions. I asked, so are we supposed to replace you?
oh, and that's a combat manicure. With them, she probably tears into the enemy's body. With her eyebrows, I don't know, maybe she sends signals, like recon data. You know, bees dance, and this one, with her eyebrows, does something similar and transmits signals accordingly. How many enemy targets there are, which direction they're in, what kind of firepower, what angle the projectile is coming from, and a lot of other things like that. And her skin is even glowing. Now, that's an assault trooper if ever there was one. What is she assaulting, though? Honestly, I don't know, and I don't want to know, but it's extremely interesting. Then we also have Omelian. This character is actually in Britain right now, by the way. He is facing criminal charges for evasion, even though before this he was shouting from every corner and writing everywhere that being a draft dodger is terrible. He used to talk about resources, but when he himself became a resource, he really didn't like it. Well, obviously the former Ukrainian minister has plenty of money, honestly earned, of course. There's no doubt about that. Especially to live in some house in Britain on the ground floor, the most honest minister in the world. And in the background, well, for anyone who doubted he was in Britain, there are yellow license plates on the cars, and the cars are right-hand drive, so it's definitely not Ukraine. And for sure, maybe it's the front line, of course. Maybe he's already made it to Britain, I don't know. And Omelian has those glasses, like a laser system. They said that in Ukraine they developed some kind of laser weapon. Maybe this is the first fighter, so to speak, with this laser guidance system. In that case, there are no more questions, yes.
In the same society next year as well. That is, the situation can change dynamically. It's not really a mobilization, and the concept is that Ukrainian land is wherever the foot of a Ukrainian infantryman stands.
Ah, so the Ukrainian infantryman, whether he's standing or sitting, well, in Britain. But then you could rephrase it. It's not where the foot of the Ukrainian infantryman is, but where the butt of the Ukrainian official is. That's where the firing line is. It's best not to talk about what's being fired or happening there, but these are the logical conclusions we reach. For example, ours.
There where we think.
These are the closest ones. Yeah, I see. Okay. By the way, today I lit a match. I don't know if that counts as a front line or not. In that case, the front is already passing through Spain. In short, that's how things are. That's the kind of nonsense we have everywhere. And the more you watch all of this, the more you start to think, maybe I'm not the normal one, maybe they're the normal ones. And here I am, sitting in Ward 6, thinking that what was before was right, but maybe now it's actually the perfect society. A perfect event, a perfect information campaign about everything, about the military, about education, about everything. Let's discuss in the comments. Share your thoughts. Goodbye. I have a question.
Subtitles, to be continued. Right now, let's say an introduction about the full scale. The real threat is that even now, let's say, there is an agreement about a full-scale peace. It could trigger a civil war in Ukraine. No major political group supports peace or friendship with Russia. There are a few outcasts, though, in the Verkhovna Rada, Kyiv, Lviv, and now even Zhytomyr. But they are going against the wind because society simply rejects them. Unfortunately, Russians have long learned to act much more precisely in these areas. The political force they will rely on will be those who are now advocating for peace, the so-called peacemakers. These peace-loving comrades, who are against modernization and mobilization,